grew up in a pretty normal family. We didn't go to church a lot, but I heard about God, and I knew about God's love. I had cousins that were preachers and missionaries, and so I was really surrounded in understanding who God was. But what people didn't realize was in the shadows of the cross that I grew up with, I was experiencing childhood sexual abuse. And, that went on for several years, and I finally had the courage to tell my family what was happening to me. And my dad stepped up, and he put an end to the abuse. But then as I was an older adolescent, it happened again, and as well as when I was in college. So, I began to think, what's wrong with me? Like, why are these things happening to me? And, as I began to understand who God was, I accepted Christ as a 16-year-old when I was in high school, but I really didn't understand the depths of God's love for me. And, I can remember for about 10 years, I went through about 2 Bibles and wore off the covers and the insides of them, just trying to find answers. It was like the Bibles of a desperate woman. And, I never really found the answers to why. But what I did find was a God that loved me beyond comprehension, and a God that loves his children, and that, his heart was broken for the things that had happened to me. And so as I began to embrace that love that Christ had for me, my whole world changed at that point. God began to chip away all those years of shame, and those broken pieces, they came together to form this beautiful thing that God was creating. To me, one of the most beautiful stories in the Bible about healing is when Jesus walked out of the tomb after the crucifixion, and he came to his disciples, and Jesus came to his disciples, and he showed them his wounds. And, he said to Thomas, "Touch my hands." And, I really believe that healing comes in personal touch. And I came to understand, a God that not just healed me, but wanted me to go forward with that message. Jesus was not ashamed of the wounds that happened on the cross. And, I don't think that we should live in shame for the things that had happened to us. And I know for many years I did. And I know that a lot of people do that. They live in shame and they hide the things that have happened. And I think it's impossible, really, to heal people unless you can embrace your own brokenness. I think that's part of the message of the cross. I heard about human trafficking, and I went out on the streets to figure out what was going on. And human trafficking is something that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I realized that there were women that society had just, considered throwaways. Nobody cared what happened to them. And, that was really heartbreaking to me. And my husband and I were really looking for a way to get involved and to do something meaningful. And we just started going out on the streets and handing out hot dogs actually on Sundays, and they began calling us the hot dog people. And from doing that, I realized that these women were either on their way to or coming from the detention center. So for me, that just set off a series of events where I began, thinking critically about, how can we help this population? How can I use the gifts and talents that I have, possibly to help these women? And it didn't come all of a sudden. It was, a step in the darkness. And, when you learn, I think, to hear God's voice, and you can recognize what God's voice sounds like when he's speaking to you, you just do what he's telling you to do, and then he shows you the next step. I think I was drawn to them because I knew that God had helped me out of the pain that I had been through, and that if he could help me, obviously he could help these women as well. Jasmine Road is a 2-year long-term residential program for women that have survived human trafficking, prostitution, and addiction. So our mission is simply to heal, empower, and employ survivors. And the way that we do that is by providing safe and secure housing, time and space to heal, meaningful employment, and then a lifelong community of support. And we've opened social enterprise restaurants that are serving to employ the women that are in Jasmine Road. A big part of what we're doing is rebuilding community for these women and loving women, and that their gifts and their talents and abilities will shine. And we want to provide them opportunities so that they can discover what those things are and really live into who they were created to be. I know that God didn't send me to the margins and to the streets for me to change the margins, but for the women on the margins to change me. And that is truly what has happened, on this journey. One of the things that I came to understand is that none of my tears were wasted. That God took all of that and built that into a way for me to be able to give to other people. And I do believe the gospel is a call to action, and it's a call to love people unconditionally, and to love without expectation of return, and to love without judgment. And that's what I love about Jasmine Road, because I get to do that every day. Every day I get to love women back to life, and I get to walk beside them as they heal, and I get to watch them become the beautiful people that God created them to be.